The first thing she felt was the cold. It clung to her skin like frost, sharp and unrelenting, as if the world itself had exhaled winter upon her bare flesh. She gasped, jerking awake. The forest around her was alive with movement, shadows shifting, branches creaking under invisible weight, eyes glowing like tiny stars in the darkness. Her breath came out in white puffs, the scent of pine and damp earth thick in the air. She tried to sit up, but her head spun. Her body trembled violently, not just from the cold but from confusion. Where am I? She looked down and froze. Her hands were pale, white, almost luminous under the faint light filtering through the trees. Her hair spilled across her shoulders in silvery strands that glimmered even without the moonlight. She looked otherworldly, strange, wrong. Move, little one. The deep voice came from the shadows, low and commanding, with a dangerous rumble that sent a shiver racing through her. She turned her head slowly, heart pounding in her chest. That's when she saw them, eyes. Dozens of them. Golden, amber, and crimson eyes surrounding her from every direction. The night pulsed with quiet growls, the air thick with dominance and danger. Wolves. She scrambled backward, her bare feet slipping against wet leaves, but there was nowhere to run. They circled her, huge, powerful wolves with fur like shadows and silver mist clinging to their paws. They weren't just animals. She could feel it, their awareness, their curiosity. Then one stepped forward. He was massive. A wolf larger than any she had ever imagined, his fur a mix of black and dark silver, his eyes glowing like molten gold. Power radiated off him, thick and suffocating. The other wolves lowered their heads instinctively, a ripple of submission spreading through the pack. The alpha. He moved closer, slow and deliberate, until his breath fanned across her face. She should have been terrified. But something about the way he looked at her, like she was both prey and something precious, made her heart twist in confusion. Who are you? She whispered, her voice trembling. The alpha's golden eyes softened for the briefest second, and then the air shimmered. His form blurred, bones cracking and reshaping until he stood before her as a man. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Bare chest glistening with mist and sweat. His hair was black as night, his jaw strong, his lips a firm, unreadable line. And those eyes, those same glowing eyes, watched her with a heat that made her cheeks burn. Mine. The word came out rough, primal, and final, like a declaration. She blinked, startled. What did you say? He didn't answer right away. He crouched down to her level, his gaze scanning her face, her hair, her trembling hands. His expression was unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes, recognition, disbelief, hunger. Who are you? She asked again, her voice smaller this time. He tilted his head slightly. You don't remember? She shook her head, biting her lip. No. I don't even know my name. The alpha's eyes darkened. You don't smell like one of mine, he murmured. And yet, his hand reached out, almost involuntarily, brushing a strand of her pale hair between his fingers. You feel like mine. She flinched at the touch, heat shooting through her body like fire and lightning combined. Her heart raced. Her instincts screamed to run, but another part of her, a deeper, quieter voice, whispered stay. The wolves around them shifted, restless. One, a sleek gray female, stepped forward and bowed her head. Alpha Kael, she said softly. She's an Omega. The albino girl's head snapped up. Omega? Kael's jaw tightened. The lowest rank among our kind, he said, his voice calm but heavy. But you, he glanced at her again, frowning slightly, you're no ordinary Omega. Her stomach twisted. I don't understand any of this. I just woke up here. Please. I don't even know who I am. Kael's gaze softened almost imperceptibly. For a moment, the Iron Alpha mask slipped, and something almost tender appeared there. You will come with me, he said simply. You're not safe here. She hesitated, her pulse racing. Why should I trust you? He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Because every wolf in this forest will tear you apart if I tell them to. But I won't. He paused, his golden eyes locking onto hers. Because for some reason I can't explain, I want you alive. Her breath hitched. The weight of his words, the tone of his voice, it wasn't a threat. It was a confession. And before she could respond, he scooped her into his arms. She gasped, startled, her hands instinctively clutching his bare chest. His body was warm, radiating heat like a living furnace. His heartbeat was steady and strong beneath her palm. She hated how safe she felt in his hold. Let me down, she protested weakly, but he didn't slow. You're shaking, he said. You need warmth. I don't even know you. His lips twitched, almost a smile. You will. The forest thinned as he carried her toward the flicker of torchlight. Wooden structures rose ahead, massive cabins arranged in a crescent around a central fire pit. The pack's den. Dozens of wolves shifted into human form as Kael entered the clearing, bowing their heads in respect. Their eyes widened when they saw what he carried. Alpha, what is she? One asked, voice low. Kael didn't stop walking. She's under my protection. The murmurs spread like wildfire. The Alpha King has claimed someone? An Omega? But why her? The girl's stomach twisted at the word claimed. She didn't understand what it meant, but the possessive tone in his voice made her skin burn with confusion and something else she didn't dare name. Inside the largest cabin, Kael placed her on a fur-covered bed near a blazing hearth. The warmth was immediate, wrapping around her like a blanket. Stay, he said, turning away to grab a robe from a nearby chest. He draped it around her shoulders before she could protest. You'll rest here until I figure out what to do with you. Her voice came out softer this time. You talk like I'm a problem. He turned back to her, his golden eyes sharp. You are. She swallowed hard, staring into the fire. Then why didn't you leave me out there? Kael hesitated, his expression flickering between control and something dangerously close to longing. Because the moment I saw you, he said quietly, every instinct in me screamed that you were mine. Her breath caught. He stepped closer, the air between them thickening with heat. I've never felt anything like it before, he continued, his voice rough. Not for any female. Not even for my betrothed. Her eyes widened. You're engaged. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached out, brushing his thumb against her chin, tilting her face upward. What are you, little Omega? He whispered, almost to himself. Her heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe. His closeness, his scent, earth, pine, and something darkly intoxicating, overwhelmed her senses. I don't know, she breathed. For a moment, neither of them moved. The only sound was the crackle of fire and the thudding of two hearts caught in the same rhythm. Then Kael pulled back sharply, as if burned by his own emotions. His jaw clenched. You'll stay here. No one is to touch you. Do you understand? She nodded silently, not trusting her voice. He turned to leave, but paused at the doorway, his back rigid. Rest, he said without looking back. We'll talk in the morning. When the door closed behind him, she exhaled shakily, pressing her hand against her chest. Her skin still tingled where he had touched her. Mine. The word echoed in her mind. Outside, the pack murmured in confusion. Inside, the girl stared into the fire, her reflection shimmering in the flames, pale skin, white hair, silver eyes that caught the light like frost. She didn't know her name, her past, or why she had woken among wolves. But deep down, beneath the fear, something ancient stirred, a whisper, soft and dangerous. You are not ordinary. Outside, Alpha Kael stood alone under the night sky, the cold wind ruffling his hair. His wolf paced restlessly beneath his skin, growling low. She's different, his beta murmured beside him. An Omega shouldn't affect you this way, my king. Kael's eyes flashed gold. She's not just an Omega. Then what is she? Kael's gaze turned toward the cabin, his expression dark and conflicted. That's what I intend to find out. But even as he said it, he knew one thing for certain. No matter who, or what, she was, he couldn't let her go. Because the moment he saw her, his soul had recognized something it had waited lifetimes for. His chosen mate. And she had no idea. When dawn came, it arrived quietly, thin threads of light slipping through the cracks in the wooden walls. The forest outside was still heavy with mist, and the soft rustle of wolves shifting echoed in the distance. The albino Omega stirred awake, the faint warmth of the hearth still on her skin. For a moment, she forgot where she was, until the deep scent of pine, smoke, and something darker filled her lungs. Him. Kael. Her pulse quickened. The memory of his voice, rough and certain, declaring her his, lingered like a phantom touch. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest. Why does he affect me like this? Before she could gather her thoughts, the door creaked open. A young woman entered, holding a wooden tray. Her brown hair was braided neatly, her eyes downcast. Alpha Kael ordered that you eat, she said softly, setting the tray on the table. You'll need your strength. The girl looked at the food, bread, berries, and a steaming bowl of broth. It smelled good, but her stomach twisted. Thank you, she said quietly. The servant gave a small nod, hesitated, then whispered, "You're lucky, you know. No one's ever stayed in the Alpha's quarters before." The girl blinked. This is his room." The servant's lips curved into a knowing smile. Every she-wolf in the pack dreams of standing where you are. But you," her eyes flicked over the pale hair and silver eyes, "you're something else." Before the girl could ask what that meant, the servant was gone, the door closing behind her. Silence fell again. Heavy. Unsettling. She turned to the window, watching the wolves move in the courtyard below, men and women training, some in human form, some running as wolves. The sight was beautiful, wild, and terrifying all at once. She didn't belong here. And yet, something inside her whispered that she did. The door opened again, and this time, her breath caught. Kael stepped in. He was dressed in dark leather trousers and a black tunic, his hair damp, a few strands falling across his forehead. Even dressed, his presence filled the room, commanding, magnetic, impossible to ignore. "You're awake," he said, his voice low and rough with sleep. She nodded, trying to steady her heartbeat. "I didn't have much choice." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You're feisty for an Omega." "I'm not an Omega," she said before she could stop herself. His golden eyes narrowed slightly. "Then what are you?" She hesitated. I don't know. I don't remember anything." He studied her for a long moment, then stepped closer. "You don't smell like a rogue," he said, almost to himself. "But your scent, it's strange. It's unlike anything I've ever encountered." "I don't understand." Kael raised a hand, silencing her. His fingers brushed her chin again, gentle yet firm, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Your eyes," he murmured. "Silver. Unnatural. Beautiful." She swallowed hard, caught in the intensity of his stare. "Stop looking at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you're trying to read my soul." He smirked faintly. "Maybe I am." Her heart hammered. Every inch of him radiated power, but there was something else beneath it, a quiet hunger, restrained and dangerous. "Eat," he said finally, stepping back. "You'll need your strength. I'm taking you to the council hall." "Council? They'll want to see what I brought into my pack." "I'm not something you brought anywhere," she snapped. Kael froze. Then, slowly, he turned back toward her, his eyes flashing. "Careful, little Omega," he said softly, the edge in his voice unmistakable. "You're under my protection. Not even my pack questions me, but that doesn't mean you can." Her defiance faltered under the weight of his dominance. But before he turned away completely, he added, "However, I like the fire in your eyes. Keep it." He left before she could respond, leaving her trembling with frustration, and something that wasn't frustration at all. The council hall was carved from black stone, ancient symbols etched into every wall. The moment they entered, all eyes turned to her. 6 elders sat in a semicircle, their gazes sharp and curious. The air was thick with the scent of dominance and suspicion. "She's an Omega," one of them asked, disbelief lacing his tone. "So she appears," Kael replied calmly. The oldest elder, a woman with silver hair and deep amber eyes, leaned forward. "And why, Alpha King, do you bring an unknown female into your heartland? You risk the pack's safety." Kael didn't flinch. "Because she's different." "Different?" another elder scoffed. "She's frail. Look at her." Kael's gaze hardened. Appearances deceive. The albino Omega shifted uncomfortably under their scrutiny. I didn't ask to be here," she said quietly. The silver-haired elder studied her. "Child, what's your name?" Her lips parted, then closed. Shame flooded her. "I don't know." The whole murmured with unease. Kael raised a hand, silencing them. "She stays. Under my protection." An elder frowned. Protection, or possession? Kael's jaw tightened. "She is mine," he said, the words vibrating through the hall with unmistakable power. The elders exchanged wary glances, but none dared challenge him further. As they left the hall, the girl turned to him. "You shouldn't have said that." He stopped mid-step. "Said what?" "That I'm yours." Kael turned slowly, his gaze pinning her in place. "Would you rather I let them tear you apart? They sense something in you they don't understand. That makes you dangerous." She glared at him. "Then let me go." His eyes darkened, the gold deepening to molten amber. "You really don't understand, do you? Once an alpha claims, he doesn't let go." Her breath caught. You don't even know me. I don't need to. The silence between them was electric, the kind that burned and hummed all at once. She tried to look away, but his hand came up, slowly, deliberately, resting against her jaw. His thumb brushed the corner of her mouth, a touch so soft it made her shiver. Tell me you don't feel it, he murmured. The pull. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Because she did feel it. The strange, invisible thread that drew her to him, that made her heart race whenever he was near. She stammered. I don't understand what's happening to me. Kael leaned closer, his breath brushing her ear. You will. That night, she sat by the window in his quarters, staring at the forest beyond. The moon was hidden behind clouds, but she could feel its pull, soft, haunting, ancient. Memories flickered at the edge of her mind. A hand reaching for hers. The sound of running water. A voice whispering her name. Lyra. Her heart skipped. The word echoed again, faint but clear. Lyra. She whispered it aloud. Lyra. The moment she said it, something inside her shifted, like a lock clicking open. Her skin tingled, and a strange hum filled her chest. She didn't know what it meant, but she knew one thing now. Her name. Lyra. Before she could process more, the door opened. Kael entered, shirtless this time, his hair damp again from a night run. The sight of him, bare skin, lean muscle, the faint sheen of sweat, made her pulse trip. You should be resting, he said, voice low. I remembered something, she blurted. He stilled. What? My name. It's Lyra. Kael's eyes softened, just a fraction. Lyra, he repeated, the sound of it deep and rough in his throat. It suits you. Their eyes met, and for a long moment, neither moved. The tension in the air was unbearable, thick with something unspoken, dangerous, and magnetic. Kael took a slow step toward her. You should sleep, he murmured. I'm not tired. Then you're restless. She swallowed hard. I don't like feeling trapped. Kael's expression darkened. You're not trapped. You're protected. There's a difference. He stopped right in front of her now, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. His voice dropped to a whisper. You challenge me like no one else, Lyra. Her name sounded like a caress on his lips. I don't mean to, she breathed. You don't have to mean it. Before she could react, his hand lifted, fingers sliding into her hair, cradling the back of her head. She froze, breath hitching. His gaze dropped to her lips. For a heartbeat, the world went still. And then, slowly, he leaned in. His lips brushed hers, soft, testing, yet charged with a fire that burned straight through her chest. Lyra gasped, her hands fisting in his tunic. He deepened the kiss slightly, not demanding, not forceful, but impossibly real. The taste of him was heat and danger and something she knew she shouldn't want but couldn't resist. When he finally pulled away, his breathing was ragged. So was hers. That, he said hoarsely, shouldn't have happened. Then why did you do it? She whispered. He met her eyes, raw and unguarded. Because I couldn't stop myself. Silence. The kind that screamed louder than words. Kael stepped back, turning away as if distance alone could steady him. Get some sleep, Lyra, he said tightly. Tomorrow, everything changes. And then he was gone, leaving her heart racing and her lips still tingling from his kiss. Outside, in the darkness, two figures watched from the trees. She's the one, the first said quietly. The Albino Omega. And Kael doesn't know what she really is, the second replied. No. But he will. And when he does, it will destroy him. The next morning came with the howl of a distant wolf echoing through the valley. Lyra stirred awake, the sound pulling her from uneasy dreams filled with silver eyes and red skies. When she opened her eyes, the first thing she noticed was the silence. No guards at the door. No Alpha Kael. Just the faint scent of pine and smoke lingering in the air. For the first time since she'd woken in that forest, she was alone. She swung her legs off the bed, her bare feet touching the fur rug. The robe Kael had given her still smelled faintly of him, earth, danger, and heat. It made her heart clench in ways she didn't understand. Lyra. She turned sharply at the sound of her name. The door had opened, and Kael's beater, Ronan, stood there, tall and grim. His dark hair was tied back, his sharp eyes assessing her with quiet curiosity. Alpha wants you outside, he said. Why? Ronan's jaw ticked. The pack's restless. They want answers. So does he. Lyra hesitated, then followed him outside. The morning sun bathed the clearing in gold, but the tension in the air was anything but warm. Dozens of wolves stood gathered, whispering among themselves as Kael stood at the center, his presence commanding silence the moment Lyra appeared. "Come," he said, voice low but steady. She walked toward him, every step echoing in her chest. Kael's eyes met hers, steady, unreadable, but burning with an intensity that made her breath catch. "This is Lyra," Kael said to the gathered wolves. "She will stay within our borders under my protection. No one is to harm her." A murmur rippled through the pack. Then, a female voice rose from the crowd. "And why should we protect her?" Lyra turned. A woman stepped forward, tall, fierce, her hair black as Kael's, her beauty sharp as a blade. She wore a crimson cloak that marked her as high rank. "Meriel," Kael said evenly. "Not now." "Oh, I think now is exactly the time," Meriel said, eyes blazing. "You bring a strange Omega into our pack, give her your protection, your quarters," her gaze flicked to Lyra, full of disdain, "and you expect us not to question it." Lyra felt every stare burning into her skin. Kael's jaw tightened. "You forget your place." Meriel's lips curved in a bitter smile. "My place? I'm your betrothed, Kael. Or did you forget that when you brought her into your bed?" Gasps echoed through the crowd. Lyra's heart stuttered. "That's not true," she said quickly. Meriel laughed, sharp and cold. "Oh, little Omega, you think he saves you out of kindness? He doesn't do anything without reason. You're a mystery he wants to solve. And when he's done, you'll be nothing but another secret buried in the woods." "That's enough," Kael growled, his alpha power rippling through the air. Even the ground seemed to hum with his anger. Meriel's expression faltered for a moment, but her voice was steady. "You're changing, Kael. And not for the better." She turned to leave, her gaze lingering on Lyra. "Be careful, girl. The Alpha King doesn't keep what he can't control." The crowd dispersed slowly, the air heavy with whispers. Lyra stood frozen, the words echoing in her mind. When they were alone, Kael turned to her. His golden eyes were darker than usual. "Don't listen to her." Lyra looked up at him, her throat tight. "Is she wrong?" He didn't answer right away. "She doesn't understand." "Then make me understand," she said softly. Kael took a step closer. "When I found you, something in me shifted. You don't understand how rare that is for our kind. I've spent my whole life resisting fate, but the moment I saw you," he stopped, as if realizing he'd said too much. Lyra's heart thudded painfully. "What are you saying?" "That I can't explain what you are to me. Not yet." The honesty in his voice disarmed her. He looked fierce and unyielding, but there was a crack in his armor, a glimpse of something vulnerable beneath. Before she could speak again, a guard approached, breathless. "Alpha. Scouts from the north border. They found blood." Kael's expression hardened instantly. "Show me." He turned to Lyra. "Stay here." She frowned. "I can help." "No," he snapped, his tone sharp with command. "You stay." Lyra's chest ached as he strode away with his guards, the weight of leadership falling around him like armor. Hours later, Lyra wandered to the edge of the forest. The wind carried the faint metallic scent of blood and ash. Something about it stirred a strange ache deep inside her chest, like a memory she couldn't quite reach. Disobeying orders already? She spun around. Ronan stood behind her, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "I just needed air," she said quietly. "Air's dangerous here," he replied. "Especially for someone the Alpha seems so protective of." Lyra frowned. "Do you not trust me either?" Ronan studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "Trust isn't the issue. You don't know what you are. That's the problem." "I told you, I don't remember." "That's exactly what worries him," Ronan interrupted. "Kael isn't the kind to claim easily. But you've changed something in him. He doesn't see it yet, but everyone else does." Lyra looked away, her chest tightening. "I never asked for any of this." "I know." His voice softened slightly. "But you're in it now." Before she could respond, a low growl echoed from the trees. Ronan stiffened. "Get behind me." The shadows shifted. Then, from the darkness, a tall figure emerged, broad, scarred, with eyes like storm clouds. Well, he drawled. "So it's true. The Alpha King's harboring a little albino Omega." Ronan snarled. "You're trespassing, Darius." The stranger smirked. "Just paying my respects. Heard your Alpha found something precious." Thought I'd see for myself. His gaze flicked to Lyra, lingering far too long. She's beautiful. Lyra's stomach twisted. Something about him felt wrong, cold, cruel. Ronan stepped forward, his voice low. Leave. Darius's grin widened. Oh, I will. But tell Kael. He leaned closer, his eyes gleaming with menace. If he won't protect what's his, I might just take her for myself. And before Ronan could move, Darius vanished into the trees, his mocking laughter echoing behind him. When Kael returned that night, his expression was grim. Blood stained his hands, though it wasn't his own. Rogue attack? Ronan asked. Kael nodded. They crossed the border. 2 scouts dead. His jaw clenched. And they carried the mark of Darius. Lyra's blood ran cold. Kael turned to her, his eyes searching her face. He came here, didn't he? Lyra hesitated. He said your name. He said that he'd take you, Kael finished, his voice dark as thunder. He stepped closer, his power flaring, his wolf just beneath the surface. No one touches what's mine. The words were sharp, possessive, and filled with something primal. Lyra's breath caught, fear and longing twisting together in her chest. Kael. Before she could speak, his hand cupped her cheek, his touch rough, his eyes burning. I won't lose you, he whispered, almost to himself. Not to him. Not to anyone. Her lips parted, her pulse racing. Why do you care so much? You said you don't even know what I am. He leaned in, his forehead pressing lightly against hers. Because my wolf knows, he murmured. Even if I don't. The air between them crackled, thick with tension. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Kael pulled back, his eyes softening. You'll sleep in my room tonight, he said quietly. Where I can keep you safe. Lyra's heart thudded. Kael. It's not up for debate, he said, his tone gentler now but still firm. She wanted to protest, to tell him she wasn't some fragile thing to be guarded, but the truth was, when he was near, the fear faded. That night, as she lay on one side of the bed and Kael on the other, silence settled over the room like a fragile truce. Lyra turned slightly, watching him in the dim light. His eyes were closed, but his hand rested loosely near hers, fingers almost touching. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, what Darius wanted, or why the moon called to her in whispers she couldn't understand. But for the first time in her life, at least, the life she could remember, she didn't feel alone. And that terrified her more than anything. Outside, deep in the forest, Darius knelt beside a pool of silver water, his reflection shifting in its surface. She's the one, he murmured. The lost heir. A woman's voice answered from the shadows. Then it begins. Darius smiled darkly. Let Kael think she's his mate. By the time he learns the truth, it'll be too late. The night sky glowed with the first silver hint of a full moon. Even the air seemed to tremble beneath its rising power. Lyra stood on the balcony of Kael's chamber, her white hair catching the faint light. The world below was quiet, too quiet, as if holding its breath for what was about to come. Every full moon, the pack gathered for the moon's rite, a sacred night of renewal when wolves surrendered to the call of their beasts. But for Lyra, the night brought something else. Restlessness. Heat beneath her skin. Whispers in her blood. She didn't understand them, but they scared her. Couldn't sleep. She turned sharply. Kael stood in the doorway, the moonlight carving sharp lines across his face. He wore only loose trousers, his chest bare, the glow of his skin silvered by moonlight. Her throat went dry. I just needed air. He stepped closer, every movement fluid and deliberate. You feel it too, don't you? Lyra frowned. Feel what? The pull. Her heart skipped. What pull? Kael's golden eyes glowed faintly. The moon calls to every wolf in its own way. But it's different for those with power. I'm not powerful, she said quietly. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You think I can't sense what you are, Lyra? The moonlight bends around you. It listens. She shook her head, backing away slightly. I don't understand any of this. You will. He stopped close enough that she could feel his heat, his scent wrapping around her like smoke and pine. Tonight, Kael murmured, you'll remember what you were before you forgot. Her pulse stuttered. What does that mean? Before he could answer, a deep howl broke through the stillness outside. Others followed, dozens of voices rising in wild, beautiful unison. Kael turned toward the sound. The rite begins. He glanced back at her. Stay close to me. No matter what happens. The clearing was a sea of firelight and fur. Wolves circled beneath the glowing moon, howls echoing across the valley. The energy was electric, ancient. Lyra stood beside Kael, wrapped in a pale cloak. Her heart pounded at the raw power in the air. She could feel it, the heartbeat of the forest, the pulse of the moon, the wildness inside every creature gathered there. Kael's voice rose above the noise, deep and commanding. Brothers, sisters, tonight, we honor the moon that binds us, the blood that makes us one. A thunder of howls answered him. Kael's gaze found Lyra's, and for a moment, the world disappeared. His golden eyes glowed with something primal, fierce, and protective. Then, without warning, the moon flared brighter, so bright it painted the entire clearing in silver fire. Lyra gasped. The ground seemed to hum beneath her feet, and heat rushed through her veins. She dropped to her knees, clutching her chest. Lyra. Kael was beside her instantly, his hands gripping her shoulders. What's happening? I don't know, she gasped. It burns. The air shimmered around her, the scent of ozone sharp and wild. Then, her eyes snapped open, no longer silver, but glowing white, blinding and pure. Wolves drew back, whimpering. Even Kael froze, his wolf instinct bowing to something greater. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. Lyra slumped forward, the light fading. Kael caught her before she hit the ground, cradling her against his chest. Her breathing was ragged, her skin slick with sweat. Kael, she whispered weakly. I saw a castle. Blood on the snow. A crown. Kael's eyes widened. A crown? Before she could answer, she went limp. Lyra. He lifted her easily, fury and fear battling in his chest. Get the healer, he roared. Lyra awoke hours later in Kael's chamber, the moonlight now soft and pale through the window. Her body ached, but she was alive. Kael sat beside her, his expression grim. What happened to me? She whispered. He hesitated. You shifted energy. Not into a wolf, but into something else. I don't understand. Neither do I, Kael admitted. But the elders think it's ancient magic. A bloodline long forgotten. Lyra frowned. Magic. Kael nodded. Not all wolves are born equal. Some carry moonfire, the gift of the first bloodlines. It said those wolves could bend nature itself. Are you saying I'm one of them? I'm saying, he murmured, leaning closer, that every part of me is drawn to you for a reason I can't ignore. And if the moonfire runs in your veins, it explains everything. Her chest tightened. You think I'm dangerous. I think you're extraordinary. The words made her breath hitch. His hand brushed hers, fingers tracing the delicate curve of her wrist. Sparks flared at his touch, literal sparks of pale light dancing across her skin. She gasped. Kael. He caught her hand gently, his thumb stroking her palm. See? It listens to me too. Her heart stuttered. What does that mean? It means, he whispered, we're bound by something older than either of us understands. Silence stretched between them. Then Kael leaned closer, his lips brushing her ear. You frighten me, Lyra. Because every instinct I have tells me to keep you close, and every law I've sworn to follow tells me I shouldn't. Lyra turned her head slightly, their faces inches apart. Then why don't you stop? His breath hitched. Because I can't. And before either could think, he kissed her. This time, there was no hesitation. His lips claimed hers with slow, deliberate heat, the kind that made the air crackle and the room seem smaller. Lyra's hands gripped his shirt, pulling him closer without realizing it. When he finally pulled back, his breathing was rough, his golden eyes dark with hunger and confusion. I shouldn't have done that, he murmured. But you did, Lyra whispered. He gave a low growl, not angry, but frustrated with himself. You drive me mad, little wolf. Lyra smiled faintly. You're the one who keeps coming closer. Kael laughed quietly, the sound deep and warm. And you keep letting me. Before either could speak again, a sharp knock shattered the moment. Kael's expression shifted instantly, his alpha mask sliding back into place. Enter. Ronan stepped inside, his face grim. We found something. You'll want to see it. Kael stood, already bristling. What is it? Ronan's gaze flicked to Lyra, then back to Kael. A body. At the north border. He carried this. He handed Kael a small pendant, black metal shaped like a crescent moon, streaked with dried blood. Kael's expression darkened. Darius. Lyra's breath caught. The rogue? Kael nodded, fury burning behind his calm exterior. He's sending a message. Ronan hesitated. There's more. The body wasn't one of ours. It was hers. He looked at Lyra. She looked just like you. Lyra froze. What? Kael demanded. Ronan nodded grimly. Same hair. Same eyes. Almost a mirror. Lyra's voice trembled. That's not possible. Kael turned to her, his eyes hard. Did you have a sister? Lyra shook her head, panic creeping into her chest. I don't remember. I don't know. Kael stepped closer, his hand resting on her shoulder, grounding her. We'll find answers. I promise. But his eyes betrayed him. Behind the calm, she saw it, the flicker of fear. Not for himself. For her. Later that night, as the pack slept, Kael stood alone outside, staring at the moon. His wolf prowled beneath his skin, restless and uneasy. Ronan joined him quietly. You think Darius is behind it? Kael nodded. He's playing a game. And Lyra's the prize. Ronan hesitated. Kael, if she truly carries moonfire, that means. I know what it means, Kael snapped, his voice low. She could be the key to everything we've lost. Or the end of us all. Kael's gaze lifted to the moon, his expression unreadable. Either way, he said quietly, she's mine to protect. Far from the pack's territory, in the ruins of an ancient temple, Darius knelt before a stone altar. A woman stood behind him, cloaked in red. The power has awakened, she whispered. The Albino Omega remembers. Darius smiled coldly. Good. Let the Alpha King fall in love with her. Let him believe she's his salvation. And when the bond is complete. Darius's eyes glinted. Then I'll take what's left. Morning crept over the forest, soft and deceptively calm. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Kael's fortress, glinting off blades, armor, and shadows that never seemed to rest. Lyra sat by the window in the chamber Kael had insisted she remain in. The world outside shimmered with mist, the valley still humming with the echo of last night's moonfire. She ran her fingers through her pale hair, trying to calm the storm inside her chest. The memory of his kiss lingered, the warmth, the fire, the way the world had stopped spinning for that one perfect heartbeat. But it terrified her. Kael was the Alpha King, feared, obeyed, and burdened with laws older than time. And she? She was an Omega, barely tolerated, a stranger with power she didn't understand. She shouldn't have let him kiss her. She shouldn't still want him to do it again. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she said, trying to sound steady. The door opened, and Lyra, one of the pack maids, entered with a tray of food. Her eyes darted nervously toward Lyra, as if afraid to meet her gaze. Thank you, Lyra said gently. You can leave it there. Lyra hesitated. The Alpha asked that you join him in the council chamber after breakfast. Lyra frowned. Is something wrong? The maid swallowed. They say, a message arrived from the southern territories. From Lady Seraphine. Lyra blinked. Who's that? Lyra's eyes widened slightly. You don't know? She's the Alpha's betrothed. The word struck Lyra like a physical blow. Betrothed? She repeated softly. The maid nodded. It was arranged years ago. A union between the two strongest packs, to bring peace. Lyra said nothing. She just stared out the window as the girl left, her mind spinning. Betrothed. Of course he was. Of course the Alpha King would never belong to an Omega, much less one with cursed blood and no past. Her hands trembled as she picked up the cup of tea. She didn't even taste it. The council chamber buzzed with tension when she entered. The long stone table was surrounded by alphas, betas, and elders from neighboring packs. Kael stood at the head, tall and commanding, every inch the ruler. His eyes softened slightly when he saw her, just for a heartbeat, before his mask slid back into place. Lyra, he said evenly. Sit. She obeyed, aware of every pair of eyes that followed her. Ronan leaned against the far wall, his expression unreadable. The air was thick with politics, suspicion, and something darker. Kael motioned toward a sealed letter on the table. A messenger from the southern territories brought this at dawn. Seraphine requests an audience. An elder spoke up. If she's traveling here, Your Majesty, the news will spread quickly. It might be wise to clarify your intentions. Kael's gaze was hard. My intentions remain unchanged. But the girl, another elder began, nodding toward Lyra. Kael's tone cut through the room like ice. She is under my protection. That's all anyone needs to know. Lyra kept her head down, her pulse quickening. Seraphine. The name rolled in her mind like a curse. A woman powerful enough to challenge kings. A woman who was meant to be his. When the council dispersed, Kael caught her before she could slip away. You heard, he said quietly. I did. He studied her face. Say what you're thinking. Lyra laughed bitterly. You mean besides the fact that you've been promised to someone else? His jaw tightened. It's political. So is everything, isn't it? She said, meeting his gaze. Except what happens when you look at me. He moved closer, his voice low. Don't twist this into something it's not, Lyra. Then what is it, Kael? She whispered. What are we? He stared at her for a long moment, then exhaled. A mistake I can't seem to stop making. The word stung. She looked away before he could see the hurt in her eyes. Understood, she murmured. She left before he could stop her. That evening, the fortress prepared for Seraphine's arrival. Lyra wandered through the gardens alone, trying to lose herself among the pale roses. The scent was heavy, intoxicating, but it couldn't drown out the ache in her chest. Her thoughts were interrupted by Ronan's voice. Pretty place to hide. She turned. The beater leaned against a pillar, his dark hair falling into his eyes. There was always a hint of danger about him, something sharp beneath the charm. I'm not hiding, she said. He smirked. Could have fooled me. The Alpha's been a storm since this morning. You did that. Lyra crossed her arms. He made his choice. Did he? Ronan's tone softened. You think Kael's the type to let anyone tell him who to marry? She frowned. You're saying he'll defy his counsel. Ronan's gaze darkened. I'm saying he's already defying himself. They stood in silence for a moment, the air between them thick with unspoken truth. Be careful, Lyra, Ronan said finally. Seraphine isn't coming here to meet an alpha. She's coming to claim what's hers. By sunset, the gates opened. Seraphine arrived surrounded by guards, her silver armor gleaming. She was beautiful, tall, fierce, and utterly sure of her place in the world. Her golden hair shimmered like sunlight, her eyes the color of polished steel. Lyra watched from the balcony as Kael greeted her with the formality of a ruler, not a lover. Still, the sight twisted something inside her chest. Seraphine smiled coldly. You've changed, Kael. The years have been kind. Kael inclined his head. You haven't changed at all. Her gaze flicked upward, toward the balcony, toward Lyra. The smile sharpened. So it's true. The rumors weren't lies. Kael stiffened. You'll mind your tone. Of course, Seraphine said sweetly. Forgive me. I forget how protective you can be. Lyra stepped back, her pulse racing. She could feel Seraphine's eyes even through the distance, a hunter assessing prey. That night, a banquet was held in Seraphine's honor. The hall glowed with candlelight, filled with laughter that never reached the eyes of those who spoke. Lyra sat at the far end of the table, silent and small among the nobles. Kael's gaze found her often, but he said nothing. Seraphine noticed. Of course she did. So, Seraphine said, her voice dripping with sweetness. This is the girl who has your pack whispering. The mysterious Omega. The hall went silent. Lyra could feel the weight of every stare. Kael's voice was calm but dangerous. She is under my protection. That's all anyone needs to know. Seraphine smiled thinly. Protection. How noble. She leaned forward, her eyes glinting. Or perhaps the great Alpha King has finally gone soft. Kael's golden eyes darkened. Careful, Seraphine. Seraphine laughed, the sound soft and venomous. Don't tell me you've fallen for her. The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Kael didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence said everything. Seraphine's smile faltered for just a second, and Lyra caught it, the flash of fury behind the poise. Later, when the guests dispersed, Kael found Lyra in the hallway. Her eyes were glossy, her voice soft. You didn't have to defend me. Yes, I did. She shook her head. You shouldn't have to. He stepped closer, frustration bleeding through his calm. You think I care what they say? What she says? She's your future, Kael. He gritted his teeth. No. You are. Lyra froze. What? He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I've tried to ignore it. The pull, the bond, whatever this is. But when I thought I lost you under the moon last night, His voice broke slightly. It nearly destroyed me. Her heart thundered. You can't mean that. Kael cupped her face, his touch trembling. I do. She should have pulled away. She didn't. The world tilted again, like it always did around him. His lips hovered over hers, close enough that she could feel his breath. Kael, she whispered. Tell me to stop, he murmured. She didn't. Their lips met, softer this time, not hunger, but longing. A kiss that trembled with everything they couldn't say. When they parted, Kael's forehead rested against hers. I don't care what laws bind me, he said quietly. You're mine, Lyra. And then, from the shadows behind them, a low voice broke the silence. How touching, Seraphine said coldly. Shall I inform your council of your choice, my king? Lyra jerked away, her heart slamming in her chest. Kael's eyes blazed with fury. Seraphine. Save it. Her voice trembled with restrained rage. You think you can throw away everything we've built for her? A cursed Omega who doesn't even know her own name. Lyra flinched. Kael stepped forward, his voice low. Watch your tongue. But Seraphine only smiled bitterly. Oh, I'll watch. I'll watch as she brings ruin to you, Kael. To all of us. Then she turned and walked away, her heels echoing like a warning. That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. The castle seemed to hum with danger, whispers curling through the corridors. She slipped from her room and wandered toward the garden, the only place that still felt like hers. The moon hung high, pale and watchful. She touched the stone fountain, her reflection rippling in the water, white hair, silver eyes, fragile and lost. Then a shadow moved behind her. She spun around, and froze. Darius stood at the edge of the garden, his dark cloak blending with the night. His eyes gleamed red in the moonlight. Hello, little Omega, he said softly. Remember me? Lyra's blood turned to ice. You shouldn't be here. He smiled. Oh, but I should. You've been quite the mystery, haven't you? The Alpha's precious secret. She took a step back. Kael will kill you if he finds you here. Darius laughed quietly. Oh, he'll find me. That's the point. Before she could move, he raised his hand, and shadows rippled through the air like black fire. Lyra gasped as invisible hands wrapped around her throat, lifting her off her feet. The air shimmered with power, dark, heavy, wrong. Tell me, Lyra, Darius murmured, stepping closer. Do you even know what you are? Her vision blurred. Let me go. He tilted his head. Oh, I will. After you deliver my message. He leaned closer, his breath cold against her ear. Tell your Alpha King, the moon chose wrong. Then, as suddenly as he'd appeared, he was gone. Lyra collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. Her hands shook violently as she clutched the pendant Darius had dropped beside her. Black metal, slick with blood. Moments later, Kael burst into the garden, his wolf raging beneath his skin. Lyra. He knelt beside her, his hands cupping her face. What happened? He was here, she whispered. Darius. Kael's eyes flashed gold. Where? He vanished. He said, the moon chose wrong. Kael pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. No. The moon chose you. And I'll prove it, even if I have to burn every border to the ground. Lyra pressed her face against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. But deep inside, a part of her trembled. Because for the first time, she wasn't sure if Darius was lying. Thunder rolled across the mountains long before dawn. The storm broke over the fortress in a rush of rain and lightning, shaking stone and sky alike. Kael stood on the balcony of his chamber, bare-chested, drenched to the bone, his golden eyes burning against the storm. He hadn't slept. He couldn't. The image of Lyra on the ground, gasping for air, haunted him. The way her skin had glowed faintly even in the darkness. The mark that had flared briefly on her collarbone, a crescent of light. Moonfire. Every instinct screamed to claim her, protect her, keep her hidden from the world that would use or kill her for what she carried. But now Darius knew. And Seraphine. Seraphine was already plotting. Kael, came Ronan's voice from the doorway. We've doubled patrols. No trace of the rogue. Kael turned, his expression grim. He was inside the fortress, Ronan. That means someone let him in. Ronan nodded, jaw tight. I'll find who. He hesitated. And the girl? Kael's gaze softened despite himself. Resting. But she won't stay that way for long. You think he marked her? Kael's hands curled into fists. If he touched her, I'll tear his heart out. Lyra woke to the soft sound of rain and the faint scent of pine. Kael's cloak was wrapped around her like a second skin. She sat up slowly, memories of the night flooding back, Darius's face, his words, the suffocating darkness. Her throat still ached, but worse was the cold she couldn't shake from her chest. Something inside her had changed. She could feel it. When she pulled the cloak tighter, her fingers brushed something warm, a faint glow beneath her collarbone. She pulled back the fabric and froze. A crescent mark shimmered just above her heart, pulsing faintly in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her pulse spiked. "What are you?" she whispered to herself. The door opened softly. Kael entered, carrying a tray of food. His hair was damp, his expression unreadable, until his eyes caught the glow. He went completely still. "Lyra," he said carefully, "how long has that been there?" She covered it instinctively. "I don't know. Since last night, maybe. When Darius." He crossed the room in 2 strides, his hands gripping her shoulders gently. "He marked you." Her breath caught. "What does that mean?" "It's not a bond," Kael said quickly, as if to reassure himself. "It's a curse. A shadow mark. His trying to bind his darkness to your light, weaken you." Lyra's voice trembled. "Can it be removed?" Kael's eyes met hers, fierce and helpless all at once. "If I find him. If I kill him." Silence hung between them, heavy and fragile. The air crackled with the same tension that always lived between them, the one neither could control. Kael's voice dropped. "Does it hurt?" Lyra hesitated. "Not exactly. It burns sometimes, when you're near." He swallowed hard. "Then I'll stay away." Her heart twisted. "That's not what I want." He looked at her for a long time, every muscle tight with restraint. Then, quietly, "Neither do I." By noon, word had spread through the pack that the Omega carried a curse mark. Whispers followed her wherever she went. Lyra kept her head high, but the stares pierced deep. Some were filled with pity. Others, with fear. Seraphine was the worst. She caught Lyra in the corridor, her lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. How convenient. The mysterious Omega becomes even more mysterious. Lyra stiffened. "I don't want trouble." "Oh, I'm sure you don't." Seraphine stepped closer, her voice honeyed poison. "But trouble follows power, doesn't it? And you seem to attract both." Lyra turned to leave, but Seraphine's next words froze her. "Do you even know what you are, little wolf? Or has Kael not told you the truth?" Lyra frowned. "What truth?" Seraphine leaned close, her breath a whisper. "That the last time an albino wolf was born, entire packs burned. The moon doesn't bless creatures like you, Lyra. It curses them." Lyra's stomach turned cold. "You're lying." "Ask your alpha," Seraphine said, her smile cruel. "If he dares to answer." That night, Lyra found Kael in the training yard, sword in hand, moving with deadly grace. The rain had stopped, but the air was thick with the scent of steel and sweat. "Kael," she called. He stopped mid-swing, turning toward her. His eyes softened at the sight of her, but there was tension in his jaw, guilt, maybe. She walked closer. "Tell me about the albino wolves." His grip on the sword tightened. "Who told you that?" "Seraphine." He cursed under his breath. "Is it true?" she pressed. "Did they burn?" Kael looked away, silent for a long moment. "Centuries ago," he said finally, "the moon chose a white wolf. Pure, powerful, but uncontrollable. Her power devoured everything she loved. They called it the Blood Moon's curse." Lyra swallowed. "And you think I'm her?" "I think you're something else," he said quietly. "Something that terrifies them because they don't understand it." "And you?" she whispered. "Do I terrify you?" Kael's eyes met hers, dark and unflinching. "Every day." She stepped closer, heart pounding. "Then why protect me?" "Because I'd rather burn beside you than live in a world without you." The confession slipped out like a vow. Before she could respond, thunder cracked again, but this time, it wasn't the storm. It was the alarm bell. Ronan burst through the door. "Kael. The eastern border, we're under attack." Kael grabbed his weapons instantly. "Darius." "Not him. Rogues. Dozens of them. They're marked with his crest." Kael turned to Lyra. "Stay here. Do you understand?" "No," she said fiercely. "I can help." "Lyra." "I can feel them," she said, eyes wide with shock. "They're close. I can, Kael, I can sense where they're coming from. He hesitated, torn between instinct and reason. You're not trained. Then let me prove I'm not helpless. Something in her tone, desperate, determined, made him nod once. Stay beside me. The forest burned with movement. Wolves shifted mid-run, fur flashing under moonlight. Snarls and howls echoed through the trees. Lyra followed Kael, her senses sharp and wild. She could feel the darkness ahead, the same cold energy that had marked her. There, she said, pointing toward the ridge. Kael nodded. Ronan, flank left. Don't let them circle. They crashed into the fight like lightning. Kael shifted mid-leap, his massive black wolf tearing through rogues with terrifying strength. Lyra moved behind him, calling to something deep inside her, something ancient. The moon answered. Light flared from her hands, slicing through the shadows. Rogues screamed as the glow burned away the darkness Darius had wrapped around them. Ronan shouted, "She's driving them back." Kael turned, just in time to see one of the rogues charge her from behind. Lyra. Before he reached her, the rogue struck, and the mark on her chest exploded in light. A wave of power ripped through the clearing, throwing wolves to the ground. For a second, everything was silent. No wind, no sound, no movement. Then the light dimmed, revealing Lyra standing in the center, eyes glowing white, untouched. The rogues were gone. Not dead, vanished, as if swallowed by the night. Kael shifted back, panting, his chest heaving. What did you do? Lyra stared at her trembling hands. I don't know. Ronan approached cautiously. Whatever it was, you scared them half to death. Us too. Kael reached for her, his hand steadying her chin. You saved us. Lyra met his gaze, her voice shaking. All cursed us. Back in the fortress, the pack whispered of the white wolf who burned shadows with light. Some called her blessed. Others, cursed. Seraphine's fury only grew. She's dangerous, she told the council. You all saw it, she's no Omega. She's a weapon, and if the Alpha King won't stop her, I will. The elders murmured, uncertain. Do you plan to defy your betrothal, Kael? One asked cautiously. Kael's voice was iron. I already have. Seraphine rose, her voice trembling with rage. Then you'll regret it. The southern packs will never stand with you once they learn what you've chosen. Kael's gaze darkened. Let them come. Later that night, Lyra found Kael alone in the war room, staring at a map scattered with marks of blood and ink. You shouldn't be up, he said without looking at her. You shouldn't be alone, she countered. He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. They're turning on us. Seraphine will go to her council. Darius will use this chaos to strike again. Lyra stepped closer, her voice soft but sure. Then let him come. I'm not afraid anymore. Kael looked at her then, really looked. The girl who had once trembled in the forest was gone. In her place stood something radiant, fierce, unstoppable. You should be, he murmured. Because if he takes you, Lyra, he takes me too. Her heart ached. You can't keep me safe forever. No, he said, his voice breaking slightly. But I'll die trying. She reached out, her hand finding his. Don't. He frowned. Don't what? Don't promise me things that will break us both. Kael's eyes softened. Then tell me what to promise. Promise you'll live, she whispered. Even if I don't. The words shattered something inside him. He caught her face between his hands, his breath unsteady. Don't you dare talk like that. Kael. He kissed her before she could finish, a desperate, consuming kiss that tasted like thunder and fear and love too strong to name. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers, his voice rough. You're not losing yourself to him, Lyra. Not while I still breathe. She closed her eyes, whispering, then hold on to me when the moon rises. Because outside, beyond the fortress walls, the full moon was already swelling, blood red on the horizon. The blood moon rose over the valley, swelling red and heavy in the night sky, a moon that promised no mercy, only revelation. Every wolf in the kingdom felt it. The pull. The hunger. The power that made even the air vibrate with tension. And for Lyra, it was agony. The mark on her collarbone burned like fire, searing through her skin in waves that made her gasp. She gripped the edge of the table in her chamber, panting, her reflection in the mirror glowing with faint, silvery light. The girl staring back at her didn't look human. Her irises shimmered white. Her veins traced with pale fire beneath her skin. Something inside her whispered, not words, but power. Ancient. Endless. Dangerous. A knock at her door snapped her out of it. Lyra. Kael's voice was low, steady, but strained. She opened the door, and her breath caught. He stood there shirtless, sweat gleaming on his skin, his golden eyes glowing feral under the blood moon. The alpha in him was fighting for control. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. He stepped closer, his voice a growl. "I couldn't stay away." The heat between them crackled like lightning. "Kael," she began, but the word dissolved when he reached up and brushed his thumb along her jaw, his touch trembling. "Every instinct in me wants to claim you," he said roughly. "But if I do that now, under this moon, I might lose control." Her heart raced. "Then trust me to stop you." His jaw tightened, his eyes burning with a war he was losing. "You don't understand what this moon does to alphas. It doesn't ask, it commands." Lyra lifted her chin. "Then let me command you." The word struck him like a spark to dry tinder. In one motion, he had her pressed against the wall, his breath hot against her ear. He didn't touch her beyond that, but the air between them pulsed with the force of what he wanted, what he denied. "Don't tempt me, Lyra," he warned, his voice a growl. She met his gaze unflinching. "I'm not afraid of you." "You should be." "Then show me why." He closed his eyes, trembling, fighting every instinct that screamed mine. But when he finally spoke, his voice was broken. "If I give in tonight, I might never let you go." Her reply was a whisper that melted the air between them. "Maybe I don't want you to." Their lips met. It wasn't gentle, it was desperate, consuming, two storms colliding. The kiss burned with all the things they hadn't said, all the times they'd pulled apart. It tasted of lightning and salt and something sacred. When they broke apart, both were shaking. Kael pressed his forehead against hers, panting. "I can't, if I stay, I'll mark you. And if I mark you, the blood moon will bind it." Lyra's eyes glimmered with tears. "Would that be so terrible?" He stepped back, his voice low. "Yes. Because this moon isn't pure. It's twisted by the curse, by him." "Darius," she whispered. Kael nodded grimly. "He's here." The alarm bell rang again, sharper this time, closer. Lyra and Kael burst from the room together, racing down the hall. The fortress was chaos. Wolves shifted mid-run, armor clattering, commands shouted through the din. Ronan met them halfway. His breached the southern gate. His not alone. Half his army are wraiths, not wolves. Kael's eyes narrowed. "Shadow wolves." "Worse," Ronan said. "They don't bleed." Kael turned to Lyra. "Stay with the healers. That's an order." She glared at him. "You can't fight him without me. You're not trained for war." "I was made for it," she said quietly. Before he could argue, the ground shook, a deafening boom that sent dust raining from the ceiling. Ronan cursed. "He's using blood magic. The gate's gone." Kael shifted in a flash of fur and fury, his black wolf leaping down the corridor with a snarl that made the walls vibrate. Ronan followed, barking orders. Lyra ran the other way, toward the courtyard. The scene outside was a nightmare. Wolves clashed in the mud and rain, howls and screams echoing through the night. The air reeked of blood and smoke. And in the center of it all stood Darius. He looked almost human, tall, graceful, his dark coat untouched by the chaos around him. His eyes glowed like dying embers, and when he smiled, Lyra's stomach turned to ice. "Little moon," he said softly, spotting her through the battle. "Did you miss me?" Kael's wolf lunged at him from behind, but Darius vanished in a cloud of shadow, reappearing behind Lyra. She spun, claws flashing, but he caught her wrist easily. "Still fighting fate, I see." Kael shifted mid-leap, landing between them. "Touch her again and I'll rip you apart." Darius laughed. "You can't kill me, Kael. Not while she carries my mark." Lyra's mark flared, and she cried out, collapsing. Kael caught her before she hit the ground, snarling, "What are you doing to her?" "I'm awakening her," Darius said. "She's not meant to be yours, Alpha. She was born to end you." Kael froze. "What?" Lyra's breath hitched, pain twisting her body. The glow beneath her skin grew brighter, spreading like wildfire. Darius smiled darkly. "The Albino Omega is no mate, she's the moon's retribution. The flame meant to cleanse the Alpha King's bloodline." Kael's world tilted. "Lies. You feel it, don't you?" Darius taunted. "The pull between you, it's not love. It's the curse completing its circle." "Enough." Lyra screamed, her voice echoing with power that wasn't hers. A wave of light exploded outward, throwing both males back. Darius stumbled, laughing breathlessly. There she is. The moon's weapon. He vanished in smoke before Kael could reach him, his laughter echoing in the distance. Lyra crumpled, the light fading from her skin. Kael was at her side instantly, his heart breaking at the sight. "Lyra, look at me," he said, voice raw. "Don't listen to him. You're not a weapon." Her eyes fluttered open, silver tears streaking her cheeks. "Then why does it feel like I'm burning from the inside out?" Kael held her tightly, whispering against her hair, "Because the moon is cruel. But we're stronger." She clung to him, trembling. "Kael, if he's right." "He's not." "But if he is," she whispered, voice barely there, "promise me you'll end it before I hurt you." He pulled back sharply, eyes fierce. "Don't ever ask me to promise that." Her tears fell faster. "Then you'll die." "Then I'll die loving you." The battle raged until dawn. The rogues retreated, leaving behind scorched earth and wounded wolves. Lyra slept for hours afterward, her body weak from the power she'd unleashed. Kael never left her side. When she finally stirred, sunlight filtered through the curtains. He brushed her hair from her face gently. "You scared me." She smiled faintly. "You're not easy to scare." He tried to smile back, but his eyes were shadowed. "Kael," she said softly, "I heard him. Darius. He said I was meant to end your line." Kael looked away, jaw tight. "The blood moon's prophecy. I've heard it too." "And you still love you," he said simply. "Because fate doesn't scare me. Losing you does." She reached for his hand. "Then what now?" "Now," he said, standing, "we prepare. The prophecy may be twisted, but it's not done yet. And I'll be damned if I let it take you from me." Lyra's gaze hardened with quiet strength. "Then we fight it. Together." He smiled, a small, broken thing. Together. But as he turned away, Lyra saw the truth flicker across his face, fear. Not of Darius, or the prophecy, but of her. That night, Kael dreamed. He stood in a vast field of snow under a blood-red sky. Lyra stood ahead of him, glowing white, her hair drifting in the wind. When she turned, her eyes were not her own. "Alpha King," she said, her voice layered with something ancient. "Your blood burns too brightly. The moon demands balance." He tried to reach her, but his hands passed through smoke. "Lyra." She smiled sadly. "When the moon bleeds again, only one of us will stand." He woke drenched in sweat, the taste of ash on his tongue. Outside, thunder rolled again. The blood moon was fading, but its mark was just beginning. By morning, the council demanded answers. The southern packs had declared Kael unfit to rule, calling him cursed for harboring the moonborn Omega. Kael ignored them. His only concern was Lyra. But Lyra was already preparing to leave. When he found her in the stables, she was strapping a saddle to one of the mares. "What are you doing?" he demanded. She looked at him calmly, though her eyes were glassy with tears. "I'm going to find Darius." "No." "Yes," she said firmly. "He has answers I need, about what I am, about what this curse really means." Kael stepped forward, gripping her arm. "You're not going anywhere alone." She met his gaze steadily. "You can't protect me from what's inside me, Kael." "I can damn well try." She softened then, reaching up to touch his face. "You've already done more than anyone ever has. But this I have to do myself." His throat worked. "If you go, I can't guarantee I'll be here when you return." Her voice cracked. "Then promise me you'll try." He couldn't speak. So instead, he kissed her, one last time, fierce and lingering, as if trying to memorize her soul. When they broke apart, Lyra whispered, "If fate wants to destroy us, it'll have to catch me first." And before he could stop her, she mounted the mare and rode into the dawn, white hair glowing like flame against the fading night. Kael watched her disappear, a hollow ache tearing through his chest. Ronan appeared behind him quietly. "You'll go after her?" Kael's jaw clenched. "Of course I will." Ronan sighed. "Even if it kills you?" Kael's eyes glowed gold. "Especially if it kills me." The forest beyond the northern range was colder than Kael remembered. The trees were ancient and tall, their branches heavy with snow that swallowed sound and scent alike. He'd been tracking Lyra for days. She was fast, faster than any Omega had a right to be. Her trail was faint, covered by fresh snowfall, but his wolf was relentless. The bond between them, Whatever the blood moon had twisted it into, pulsed like a heartbeat in his chest, pulling him forward. Ronan had begged him to wait, to take warriors with him. But Kael couldn't. This wasn't a mission. It was instinct. It was love turned into madness. He stopped briefly by a frozen stream, crouching low to examine a faint print in the snow. Small. Light. Hers. She's close, he muttered. The wind shifted, and so did the scent. Not Lyra. Darius. Kael's teeth bared, a growl rumbling from his chest. Lyra stood on the cliff overlooking the valley, her white hair whipping in the wind. She'd been traveling north for 3 nights, following whispers in her head that grew louder the further she went. She didn't know if they were hers or the moon's. But they led her to a place that felt alive. A ruin stood below, half buried in frost, its stone walls carved with crescent symbols. The same ones that had flared on her skin. Her heart raced as she descended the slope, boots crunching in the snow. The air grew warmer the closer she came, humming faintly with energy. When she stepped through the broken archway, the mark on her chest began to glow. Welcome, little moon. She spun around, and there he was. Darius. He leaned against a pillar, looking far too calm for a monster. His dark hair hung loose around his face, and the faint smirk on his lips made her stomach tighten with equal parts fury and fear. You followed my whispers well, he said softly. Lyra's jaw clenched. You've been inside my head. Only to guide you, he said, stepping closer. You needed to remember. Remember what? He stopped inches from her, his eyes glowing faintly red. Who you are. I'm no one's weapon, she hissed. No, he said gently. You're the moon's last child. She froze. What does that mean? Darius's expression softened. For the first time, she saw something like sadness there. The moon created balance. Darkness and light. For every Alpha King born of shadow, an Omega of light must rise. You are her answer to Kael. Lyra's pulse thundered. No, that can't be. He was never meant to love you, Darius continued. He was meant to fall because of you. That is the law of the blood moon. She shook her head, stepping back. You're lying. Am I? He raised a hand, and the walls around them shimmered, visions spilling like smoke into the air. Lyra gasped. She saw Kael, his wolf drenched in blood, a battlefield burning around him. His crown cracked, his eyes wild. And in front of him, a white flame, destroying everything in her path. No, she screamed. That's not me. The vision faded, but Darius's eyes were full of grim certainty. It will be, if you stay by his side. Lyra stumbled back, her chest heaving. Then I'll change it. I'll change everything. He smiled faintly. That's what she said too. Lyra blinked. Who? The last moonborn, he said softly. My sister. Kael burst into the ruins minutes later, the echo of his growl bouncing off the stone. Lyra. Darius turned, his smirk sharp again. Ah, the Alpha King arrives, ever the hero. Kael's golden eyes glowed. Step away from her. Always so protective, Darius mocked. But tell me, Kael, will you still protect her when she burns you alive? Kael shifted before the words even finished leaving his mouth, his black wolf tearing across the floor. Darius laughed and vanished into smoke, reappearing behind him. Predictable, he murmured. Lyra stepped between them, her hands glowing white. Stop. Both of you. The light burst outward, freezing them both in place. For a moment, the ruins glowed with a brilliance that made even the shadows recoil. When it dimmed, Lyra stood in the center, trembling. Kael stared at her in awe and fear. Lyra, he breathed. What did you do? I don't know, she whispered, tears glinting in her eyes. But I think I just felt the moon breathe through me. They made camp near the river that night. The ruins had crumbled further under the weight of her power, forcing them to retreat. Lyra sat near the fire, staring at her hands. They still shimmered faintly in the dark. Kael sat opposite her, silent. His eyes were softer now, but distant, too. Finally, she broke the silence. You think he's right, don't you? Kael looked up. About what? About me being the end of you. He didn't answer right away. The fire crackled, filling the space between them with its low hum. I don't know what to believe anymore, he said finally. But I know this, you're not my enemy. Even if fate says otherwise. He smiled faintly. Fate can burn. Her chest tightened. Kael. He rose and crossed to her side, crouching in front of her. You think I don't feel it too? This pull between us, it's not just instinct. It's something deeper. It's what keeps me alive when everything else is falling apart. Her eyes filled. And what if it kills you? Then at least I'll die knowing it was real. The words undid her completely. She reached for him, her fingers trembling as they brushed his jaw. He leaned into her touch, eyes closing. I don't know how to stop this, she whispered. Then don't. His lips found hers, soft this time, slow, aching, reverent. The kind of kiss that said everything words couldn't. When they broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. You make it hard to believe in destiny. He smiled. Good. They reached the mountain border 2 days later, the place the old wolves called the Edge of Night. Beyond it lay the Shadowlands, where Darius had built his army. Kael knew it was a trap. Lyra knew it was necessary. As they climbed, she grew quieter. The closer they came, the more the mark on her chest burned, not in pain, but in recognition. When they reached the summit, the moon broke through the clouds, silver now, no longer blood-red. Lyra stopped. It's changing. Kael frowned. What is? The moon. It's calling. He stepped closer. To you? She nodded, her voice trembling. To both of us. The air shifted. Shadows rippled across the snow like living things. And then they saw him. Darius stood ahead, flanked by his wraith wolves, creatures of smoke and bone. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with triumph. I told you she'd come, he said. Kael growled, stepping protectively in front of Lyra. You won't touch her again. Darius tilted his head. You still think you can fight destiny? Foolish, even for an alpha. Lyra's voice cut through the tension, clear and strong. I'm not destiny's toy. Darius's smirk faded slightly. Then prove it. Kill him. She froze. What? End him, Darius said, his voice sharp. Break the bond and you break the curse. Lyra's heart pounded. You're lying. Am I? His tone softened. Look inside you, little moon. You feel it, the power building, begging for release. If you don't choose soon, it will choose for you. Kael grabbed her hand, his grip firm. Don't listen to him. Lyra's breath came fast, the mark on her chest pulsing violently. Kael, I can't, it's too much. He turned her face toward his. Focus on me. Just me. For a moment, the world fell away. The shadows stilled. The noise faded. And then, light exploded. The ground shook as a column of white fire shot into the sky, wrapping around Lyra like wings. Darius stumbled back, shielding his eyes. Kael barely held on, the force of it tearing through him like wind. When it ended, Lyra was floating inches above the ground, her hair glowing, her eyes pure silver. Lyra, Kael said softly. She looked at him, but it wasn't quite her anymore. The moon demands balance, she said, her voice lead with power. Light must meet shadow. Lyra, fight it. She blinked, and for a second, her real self flickered through. Kael? He stepped closer, ignoring the heat burning his skin. Come back to me. Taz slipped down her glowing cheeks. You shouldn't have followed me. Then I'd have lost you sooner. She gasped, and suddenly, the light dimmed. The glow faded. She fell forward, collapsing into his arms. Kael caught her, heart pounding. I've got you. Darius's laughter echoed faintly as he retreated into the mist. This isn't over, Alpha. The blood moon always takes what it's owed. Kael looked down at Lyra's pale face, fury and fear twisting inside him. Then it'll have to go through me first. Later, in the shelter of a frozen cave, Lyra stirred awake. Kael was there, his cloak wrapped around her, eyes weary but gentle. What happened? She whispered. You stopped it, he said. You stopped yourself. She frowned weakly. And Darius? Gone. For now. She tried to sit up, but he held her still. Rest. She sighed. You can't protect me from this forever. He smiled faintly. Watch me. Kael, her voice softened. What if he's right? What if I'm meant to destroy everything you are? He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch tender. Then I'll rebuild it around you. Lyra's heart broke and healed all at once. She reached up, her hand trembling against his cheek. You're impossible, she whispered. I've been told, he murmured, leaning down, their lips brushing, soft and aching. And for the first time in weeks, Lyra let herself believe that maybe love could be stronger than prophecy. But far above, unseen through the cave's ceiling, the moon burned red again, just for a moment. As if it were watching. As if it were waiting. The storm had passed, but the air still trembled with the residue of power. Snow fell softly outside the mouth of the cave, muffling the world into silence. Kael sat beside Lyra, his arm around her, his eyes fixed on the horizon as dawn painted the sky in pale gold. Neither had slept. Neither could. The mark on Lyra's chest had dimmed to a faint shimmer, but he could still feel its pulse, steady, alive, dangerous. "Do you ever think," she whispered, "that maybe we weren't meant to meet at all?" Kael turned to her, his voice quiet but firm. "If fate didn't mean for us to meet, it wouldn't have worked so hard to keep us apart." Lyra smiled weakly. "You always have an answer." He smiled too, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Not for everything." Silence fell again, soft, fragile. The kind of silence that hides too many truths. Finally, Kael spoke. "When I was a boy, my mother told me a story about the first Alpha King. He fell in love with a moon spirit, pure light in a world of shadow. But their bond cursed the land. Every time they touched, storms would rage. When they finally mated under the blood moon, the world nearly burned." Lyra's breath caught. "What happened to them?" "She died," Kael said quietly. "And his line carried the curse forever." She turned to him slowly. "You think we're them?" He looked into her eyes, pale silver against gold, and something inside him broke. "I think we're what they left behind." By midday, they reached the edge of the valley where the old moon temple stood. Kael had only seen it once before, a ruin of white stone, half buried beneath centuries of ice. But now it pulsed faintly, as though alive. Lyra hesitated at the entrance. "It's calling again." Kael frowned. "The temple?" She shook her head. "The moon." The doors groaned open as they approached, ancient runes flaring along the walls. Inside, the air was thick with power, old, sacred, heavy. At the center stood a pedestal carved with twin wolves, one black, one white, locked in an eternal embrace. Kael brushed his fingers over the carvings. "Balance," he murmured. Lyra nodded. "Light and shadow. It's beautiful." A voice echoed faintly through the chamber, soft, melodic, otherworldly. "It was beautiful once." Lyra spun around. "Who's there?" A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, graceful, her hair the color of moonlight, her eyes shimmering like Lyra's. Kael stiffened. "Spirit." The woman smiled faintly. "You remember me." Lyra stepped forward, awe-filling her voice. "You're the moon goddess." "Not goddess," the spirit corrected gently. "Guardian. Of balance. Of love." Her gaze fell on Lyra, soft and sad. "And you, child, are my last mistake." Lyra flinched. "Mistake?" "When I bound light and shadow into one world," the spirit said, "I thought they could coexist. But every Alpha King born carried the hunger of the dark, and every moonborn Omega carried the light that could destroy him." Kael's chest tightened. "The prophecy." The spirit nodded. "It is not a prophecy. It is a cycle. Endless. You are simply the next." Lyra's voice trembled. "So we're doomed to repeat it." "Not doomed," the spirit said softly. "Tested. Each pair must choose, destroy one another, or break the moon's hold forever." Kael stepped closer. "How?" The spirit's eyes darkened. "With sacrifice. Love is the key, and the price." Lyra's stomach turned cold. "One must die." The spirit's silence was answer enough. They left the temple in silence. The sun had set again, painting the snow in rose and gold. Lyra walked ahead, her cloak billowing in the wind, tears freezing on her cheeks. Kael followed a few steps behind, unable to speak. Every word he wanted to say felt like a betrayal, of love, of hope, of her. Finally, she stopped. "You knew, didn't you?" Kael froze. "What?" "You knew what the prophecy meant all along." She turned, eyes bright with tears. "That's why you tried to push me away." He didn't answer. "Say it," she demanded. He met her gaze, his own eyes haunted. "Yes. I knew." Lyra's breath shuddered. "And you didn't tell me?" "I couldn't," he said, his voice breaking. "Because the moment I said it aloud, it would become real. And I can't live in a world where killing you is an option." Tears streamed down her face. "You should have trusted me." "I did," he whispered. "That's why I let you go." Her anger faded, replaced by something softer, sorrow, understanding, love that hurt too much to bear. You're a fool, Kael. I know. She stepped closer, her hand trembling as it reached for his face. And you're mine. He caught her wrist gently, pressing her palm to his chest. Always. They camped in silence that night beneath a sky full of stars. Lyra lay awake, listening to the rhythm of Kael's breathing beside her. Every inhale, every exhale, steady, grounding, alive. She thought of the spirit's words. One must die. The thought hollowed her chest. She could feel the truth of it in her bones. The bond between her and Kael wasn't just love, it was balance. And balance demanded a price. If he died, the curse might end. If she died, he might be freed. Either way, the moon would have its due. She turned on her side, watching his sleeping face. He looked peaceful for once, younger, softer. She leaned in and whispered against his skin, I won't let you pay the price. Then she kissed his forehead and slipped away into the dark. Kael woke to the sound of wings. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. Then he saw the empty space beside him. Lyra. He was on his feet in seconds, following her scent through the trees. It led upward, toward the ridge, toward the temple again. Lyra, he roared. His voice echoed through the mountains, raw and desperate. At the summit, Lyra stood beneath the full moon, her cloak whipping in the wind. The light bathed her in silver fire. She turned when she heard him, tears streaking her face. Kael, don't come closer. He stopped, chest heaving. What are you doing? Ending it, she said softly. Before the moon takes you. He shook his head fiercely. You're not dying for me. Her smile broke his heart. Then who else? Me, he said. If someone has to die, it'll be me. Kael. No, he stepped closer, his eyes blazing. You said love was the key, right? Then let it be love that saves us, not kills us. Lyra's voice trembled. I don't know how. Then we'll learn together. She looked at him, really looked, and something in her shattered. She ran into his arms, sobbing against his chest. The light around them flared, blinding. When it faded, they were both glowing, Kael's golden light merging with her silver, twining like threads of fire and moonlight. The mark on her chest pulsed once, then vanished. The bond snapped and reformed, stronger, cleaner, free of the blood moon's curse. Lyra gasped. Kael? He smiled, tears in his eyes. You did it. No, she whispered. We did. He kissed her then, slow and deep, as the moon turned pale again, pure, untainted, watching in silence. They returned to the fortress days later. Ronan met them at the gates, relief and disbelief warring on his face. By the gods, he breathed. You're alive. Barely, Kael said, smiling faintly. Lyra looked around. The pack stared at her now not with fear, but awe. Her hair shimmered faintly, her eyes still silver, but there was warmth there now, life. Seraphine stood at the back, her usual sneer replaced by something unreadable. When Kael approached, she bowed her head. Alpha. He hesitated. Seraphine. She looked up, her eyes full of regret. I was wrong. Lyra stepped forward gently. We all were. Seraphine's lips twitched, not a smile, not quite. Then make it worth it. That night, under a calm silver moon, the pack gathered around the fire. Kael stood at Lyra's side, their hands intertwined. 4 years, he said, his voice carrying through the night, we've lived under the curse of the blood moon. But tonight, it ends. The pack roared in approval. Lyra's heart swelled as Kael turned to her, his gaze full of everything words could never say. Light and shadow, he murmured. We were never meant to destroy each other. We were meant to make the world whole again. She smiled through her tears. Then let's start. He kissed her, soft, certain, eternal. And above them, the moon shone brighter than it had in centuries, not red, not cursed, but silver and pure. The curse was broken. The balance restored. And love, against all odds, had won. The first dawn after the curse broke came with a hush that felt almost holy. The valley lay wrapped in silver mist, the scent of pine and snow heavy in the air. The world was still, as if holding its breath after centuries of torment. Lyra stood at the edge of the ridge, her cloak fluttering softly in the morning breeze. Below her, the pack was stirring, their howls low and content, echoing through the peaks. For the first time since she'd opened her eyes in that forest, surrounded by wolves, she felt free. Kael came up behind her quietly, his presence as solid and grounding as the earth beneath her feet. He wrapped his arms around her waist and pressed his chin to her shoulder. Still watching the sun rise, he murmured. She smiled faintly. It's strange. I used to be afraid of the light. Now it feels like home. His lips brushed the curve of her neck, gentle, reverent. You are the light. Lyra turned in his arms, her pale eyes glowing faintly in the dawn. And you're the shadow that keeps it alive. He chuckled low in his throat. You make me sound less terrifying than I am. You've never terrified me, Kael. That's because you're mad. That, she said with a small grin, or I just love you too much to be scared. He leaned down then, kissing her softly, slow and deep, the kind of kiss that spoke of forever. When they parted, their foreheads stayed pressed together. I never thought I'd get to see this day, Kael said quietly. A day where my pack could stand without fear. Where I could hold you in the open. Lyra smiled. Then it was worth everything. He went still. Even the pain. She nodded. Especially the pain. Because it led me to you. By midday, the pack had gathered in the courtyard below the fortress. The snow had melted into glittering streams that ran through the stone, reflecting sunlight like glass. Kael stood before them, tall, regal, every inch the Alpha King, but there was a softness in his eyes now that no one had ever seen before. At his side, Lyra stood radiant, her white hair gleaming like spun silk, her hand in his. Ronan stepped forward first, lowering his head. Alpha. Luna. A murmur ran through the wolves. Luna. The word struck Lyra like a heartbeat. Once, she'd been an outcast, an omega marked by difference, feared and pitied in equal measure. Now she stood before them as their queen. Kael squeezed her hand. You've given us hope, he said to his people, his voice deep and steady. The curse that bound our blood is broken. But freedom is not the end, it's the beginning. The moon has tested us, and we have prevailed. From this day forward, no wolf will be judged by rank or birth. The pack stands as one. A chorus of howls rose in answer, fierce, joyful, proud. Lyra's heart swelled as she looked at them, warriors, mothers, children, all looking to her with trust, not fear. Seraphine stepped forward next, her posture straight but her eyes softer than Lyra had ever seen them. The Moon Temple's magic is fading, she said. The curse won't touch another generation. It's over. Lyra reached out and took her hand, a gesture that made the entire courtyard fall silent. Thank you, Lyra said softly. Seraphine blinked, her throat working. You're thanking me? For surviving, Lyra replied. For helping him when I couldn't. For reminding me that strength doesn't always look kind. For a moment, Seraphine said nothing. Then she gave a small, genuine smile. You're going to change everything, aren't you? Lyra glanced at Kael. We both are. That night, the pack celebrated. The fires blazed high, music echoed through the mountains, and laughter replaced the howls that once marked sorrow. Lyra danced barefoot in the snow, her laughter bright and wild. Wolves spun around her, human and beast alike, rejoicing in the balance they'd finally reclaimed. Kael watched from a distance, his eyes soft. For so long, he'd been the monster in the stories told to pups, the alpha who killed his first mate, who ruled through fear. But tonight, he was just a man watching the woman who'd saved him dance under the stars. Ronan nudged him with a grin. You look smitten. Kael didn't deny it. I am. You deserve it, brother. Kael's eyes followed Lyra as she spun through the snow. No, he said quietly. She does. When the fire burned low and the music faded, Lyra slipped away into the woods. The moon hung low and soft above her, no longer crimson, but a pale, gentle silver. Kael found her sitting on a fallen log, her feet bare, her breath fogging in the cold air. You always find the quiet, he said. I think it finds me, she replied with a smile. He sat beside her, wrapping his cloak around them both. What are you thinking about? She leaned against him. What happens now? Now, he said slowly, we live. She laughed softly. That's not very poetic. I've had enough prophesied to last a lifetime. I'll take simple. Silence settled between them again, not heavy this time, but easy, peaceful. Lyra looked up at the moon. Do you think it's truly over? Kael followed her gaze. The curse, yes. But us? We're just beginning. Her smile was soft, but her eyes glistened. I'm not afraid anymore. You never were. I was, she admitted. I was afraid of being alone. Of being unwanted. But then you looked at me like I was worth something. Like I mattered. You were, he said. You always were. She turned to face him fully, her pale hair glowing under the moonlight. Kael? Yes? She smiled, tears in her eyes. Take me home. He kissed her then, deep, certain, and infinite. And the world seemed to hold still around them, as if time itself bowed to what they were. Years later, legends would whisper about the Albino Omega who broke the Blood Moon's curse and the Alpha King who defied fate for her. They would say their love changed the balance of the world, that light and shadow learned to live as one because of them. But those who knew the truth would remember the quieter moments, the laughter, the shared silences, the way their fingers found each other's even in the dark. For in the end, the greatest power they'd ever wielded wasn't born of magic, or prophecy, or blood. It was love, stubborn, imperfect, eternal. And as the dawn rose over the valley, painting the snow in gold, Lyra and Kael stood side by side, watching a new world wake. Together. Always. The end.